This story is about my most unexpected, briefest adventure in customer service. It's a story about the time that my not yet wife and I accidentally started up an unauthorized information booth at the Philadelphia car show. This was a number of years ago. It was shortly after the dawn of the new millennium. It was a more innocent time. And it was a time where we put our trust and confidence in our authority figures, our school teachers, our reality TV show hosts, and our information booth operators. And I too was more innocent at the time. I was in a promising new relationship with a curly-haired congressional reporter, and Allison had just invited me to accompany her on a short work trip in Philadelphia. And this was early in our relationship, and I was still trying to put forward a really good impression, and so I was trying to keep in check my enthusiasm for Philadelphia. And by that, I mean my excitement for Philadelphia's colonial-era historical tourist sites. As a kid, I had a small bust of Thomas Jefferson on my bedroom bookshelf on that part that was reserved for my non-existent sports trophies. And next to it was a cheap pocket watch that I had won for entering a contest about the history of the Constitutional Convention. And I remember at the time when I was telling someone about it, the reaction I got was just a sigh and an eye roll. And that was from my history teacher. So I didn't want Allison to be rolling her eyes at me any more than was necessary. So after we had visited Benjamin Franklin's house and the Liberty Bell, I was feeling a pressure a little bit to mix things up. So I blurted out we should go to the car show, which was in town in Philadelphia. Now, I was not a car guy. I have only ever been to a car show once when I forced my parents to take me so I could see the Monkey Mobile. And we stood in line so I get an autograph from Mickey Dolenz, my second favorite monkey, which was pretty exciting. But there was no Monkey Mobile at the Philadelphia car show. It was just, acres and acres of cars crammed into every corner of the cavernous convention center. And so, in other words, a pretty boring place to take a date. And so I was feeling a little bit of concern that this was going to reflect poorly on me as a potential long-term vacation partner. And so, we were bored and tired and looking for a place to rest, and we found a couple empty folding chairs behind a abandoned card table along the side of one of these long hallways connecting different parts of the convention. And no sooner had we slumped down in those chairs than an older couple came over to us, and they said, could you please direct us to the classic cars? And I said, excuse me? He said, the classic cars in Ballroom B, could you please give us directions? Now, I didn't want to disappoint this nice couple, but fortunately for them, I had some customer service training to fall back on. That was from many years prior, in the previous millennium, an even more innocent time, a time where we put even more trust in our authority figures, our elected representatives, our sitcom dads, our retail clerks. I had a job in high school one summer as working in the electronics department of a Kohl's department store. And I remember only a couple things from our employee training. The first being that management wanted us to keep our eyes on our coworkers because they were robbing the store blind through their constant shoplifting. And the other thing was that they didn't give us any training on how to sell electronics. So there I was all by myself with nothing but a flimsy name tag, and people were coming into my section of the store, adults, friends of my parents, asking me for my advice on which VCR to pick. I didn't know anything about VCRs or electronics at all, and so I couldn't say that, and I wasn't going to make something up. So the approach I took was just to stall for a minute and quickly glance at all the different boxes and try to read the bulleted list of features, and I would say something like, well, this model over here has automatic rewind, which was a big deal at the time, and this model over here, apparently does not have that. And for some people, that was enough help. And so what I learned was the thinnest, most meager veneer of authority coupled with the ability to read labels and lists would confer on a person really an unwarranted and unearned, sense of expertise. And that is what I took with me to my experience there at the Philadelphia Car Show with this nice couple in front of me. I took in my surroundings, and sure enough, the convention center actually did a pretty adequate job of signage. And down at the far end, there was a big placard that said Ballroom B with an arrow. And so I said to these nice people, as they looked expectantly at me, I said, yeah, so Ballroom B, you go all the way down to the end here by the escalators, you take a right, you keep going until you find the classic cars. And they brightened up, and they thanked me, and they were on their way. And from next to me, I heard Allison say, do they think that we're an information booth? And I looked at us, a couple of bedraggled, sort of out-of-towners, still in our winter coats, just standing at a nondescript table. I said, well, that can't possibly be the case, but then a family came up to us and asked us for directions to the restrooms. And I looked in the other direction, and sure enough, there was a sign with the universal symbol for men's room and women's room. And I told them, well, yeah, you just go down that way, and it's right on your right, you can't miss it. And they went off on their way, another satisfied customer. And I turned back to Allison, and I said, yes, I think that they think we're an information booth. And by God, we were going to be an information booth. But not just any information booth. We were going to be the best damn information booth that the Philadelphia Car Show had ever seen. And so we took off our jackets and we sat up straight in our chairs. And we were handing out directions left and right as people came in one after another. Ballroom B, Ballroom D, escalators, elevators. Business was booming and things were going so well that we decided to expand our operations. We reached into our pockets and got out the crumpled city maps and the brochures from the places that we had been over that weekend. We flattened them out as best we could and put those pieces of trash on the table in front of us. And just like that, we were a fully fledged fake franchise of the Philadelphia Tourist Bureau. We were pointing out, there's Betsy Ross's house, and we were giving recommendations to the diner that we had eaten at that morning, and I was just feeling great. My dumb idea of going to the car show was starting to turn out all right, and it put me in mind of a famous quote from Benjamin Franklin. When he was at the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia in 1787, and he was wondering about the future of his new nation, whether it would succeed or fail, and he was there in Independence Hall looking up where George Washington was sitting presiding over the conference, and on the back of George Washington's chair was an engraving of a sun on the horizon. And Benjamin Franklin was quoted as saying, often and often, during the course of this session, in the vicissitudes of my hopes and fears for its issue, I would look at that sun behind the president, wondering whether it was a rising or setting sun. And I now have the happiness to know that it is a rising sun. And that's how I felt. I felt my sun was rising too, both in terms of what was going on that day, my relationship, and the great advice and counsel we were giving to the good people of the Philadelphia Auto Show. And at that moment, a harried young couple came up to us, and they said, we need your help. We've lost our child. And that was the precise moment that our experiment in amateur information boothness came to an abrupt end. Of course, we directed them down the escalator to the actual information booth, and we shut down that operation. We gathered up our pamphlets, dropped them in the trash, and we headed out of the convention center to search for some cheesesteaks for dinner. And that's the end of my story, and I know we're not quite almost done with the show tonight, but I would be remiss if I didn't point out to you, in case you didn't know, that the bathrooms are right there in the back on the door. There are exits here and through the other way. And if you want any recommendations about Falls Church City, I'll be available here after the show. Thank you very much.